The body is so important. We need to heal the body, the connective tissue, and then it affects the energy field. But we need to be in our bodies. We need to be aligned. The fascia, the connective tissue, holds our memories. It holds the negative emotions. It holds our stress. It holds our trauma from this life, from our childhood especially, and from other lives, past lives. Hi, this is Joanne Figov, and this is your superior self.
Joanne, thank you so much for taking the time. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, and I'm delighted to be in here. Thank you for asking me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm just really fascinated with your work, and I think it can really help my listeners and my audience, especially in the world of healing. But before we
Yes.
dive into your past and kind of giving the listeners some context or, the audience context, I want to know, Joanne, how do you perceive this reality?
It's changed over the years. Um, but in fact, ever since I was little, I always had a sense of other realities, that this wasn't it. And I believed in life after death even before I had proof. So that gave me a great deal of comfort. And it was when I started in the healing world and I started treating people, and the universe, the spiritual element opened up to me, and I sensed and felt and saw other realities, that I got really excited and felt more and more comforted by what I felt and perceived around me.
So, other realities, can you describe what they look like?
Well, just to tell you a story, when I was about 6 or 7, I was very ill living in Cape Town. I was very ill. I had a high fever. And I remember I was lying in bed and I couldn't move. And my mother was there with the doctor. And it was a strange experience because I couldn't talk, I couldn't move. And then suddenly I was aware that there was part of me that was away from my body. It was obviously an out of body experience, which I didn't realize at the time. And I came away from my body and I wasn't scared. And I was just watching them. And I was trying to talk and I couldn't. And then suddenly I was back in my body. And that was the one time when I realized, oh, there's more than this. There's more than this.
Yeah. What is this? I mean, what are your thoughts on this reality?
I Well, not I know. It's a sense of knowing that we're not alone. We I believe that we are spiritual beings in a human form on this earth to fulfill our purpose, if we get to that, to fulfill our purpose and to learn along the way. But more than that, to expand and open up to the essence of who we are. And I believe it's the soul essence, because we're human and soul at the same time. Many people think the two are separate, but at the same time. So when we develop ourselves, when we are in alignment with all our the physical, emotional, mental, spiritual bodies, when we're in alignment with ourselves and in our body and healthy, then we can open up to the other energies around us and sense and feel. And because I've been sensing that for many years, most of my life, and I see it with clients, it's become almost second nature to me. I don't know whether you'd like me to tell you a really interesting story that happened about 20 years ago in 2004, when other worlds opened up spontaneously. I was in a group, a little development group with friends, and it went on for about 2 years, once a week. And after a couple of weeks, I suddenly felt really strange. I was sitting there with everyone, and I suddenly became incredibly hot. And it was like the back of my neck opened up, and I was aware of all these energies around me. And it's hard to describe, but it's like they overshadowed me. And all of a sudden, a strange voice came out of me, this strange voice. And I was shocked. And I was there, I was conscious, but I was to the side of what was happening. And many years later, I realized that's what one would call transchanneling or transmediumship. And every week at the group, a different voice would come out and they would tell me, but it wasn't in words, it was telepathic. They would, the one would convey to me that they were from a star system far away. Others would say they were angels and all sorts of light beings. It was a very exciting time, but because I didn't have a teacher or a mentor in those days, I didn't know what to do, and I didn't have the guidance. Sadly, I have the guidance now. And unfortunately, we didn't record it, but the most amazing information just came out spontaneously. It wasn't me talking. It was another energy using my voice box. And there were prophecies about the world, what was going to happen. There was amazing, beautiful words of wisdom. And that's when I realized, my goodness, there's so much more than our bodies, so much more than what we know. Obviously, it was hard at that time to prove where it was coming from, what it was. And after 2 years, the group broke up. And I shut this ability down because it was affecting me physiologically. I felt my hormonal system seemed to be going out of balance. And I felt it was that. And then I just spent years researching, searching, meditating, working on myself, because I feel personal development is essential, and doing my healing work. And I now believe we don't have to have such a dramatic experience as that. All of us can channel, and we can do it consciously, because the energies of the world have shifted so much, Trey, as you know, as everybody who's listening knows. It's really an exciting time to be alive, and the frequency has changed, and we are now able to connect so much more beyond the veil than, say, 20 or 30 years ago. Because when I started my work and the healing work over 25 years ago, it was very, very different, very different. And even with my clients, a strange thing happened. 20 years ago, they would come for a sore back, a sore neck. And then 10 years ago, especially 5 years ago, people would come and say, I don't know why I'm here. I just feel I want to connect to something else. I feel I want to connect to my life purpose.
That's so beautiful. So you were in the game of healing, and you're
Yep.
doing that, and then you joined an energy group or a group, and then you started channeling information.
Yep.
Did that information guide you into becoming a more effective healer? Like, what type of information were they giving you?
Well, different. As I said, there were amazing beings coming through. One was giving prophetic information about the world, which sadly, as I said, we didn't record. We didn't realize then we should have recorded. I did write quite a lot down afterwards. And then there were lots of words of wisdom and guidance for us all. But with all these things, it came through me, so I can't remember much of it at all. But it definitely affected the healing. And what happened within those 2 years, there was a very intense period where the portal seemed to be open for me. So when I wasn't in the group, I would sit on my own and meditate, and it wouldn't take long before, again, I was overcome with this beautiful energy. It was different. I didn't go into a trance channeling mode on my own, but I felt this incredible energy. All I can say, it was and is the vibration of love, pure love, to the extent that I was so overwhelmed by this almost heavenly vibration of love that I would just cry and cry, because now I believe that vibration was of such a high frequency that you just can't help but feel highly emotional as it connects. So that, again, I felt some amazingly high vibrational heavenly beings, whoever they were. And it also opened up my heart, the heart chakra, the heart area. And I realized the connection between spiritual unfoldment, connecting with our soul and higher beings, light beings, and having an open heart. So when I entered the world of healing, it was interesting because I knew that when I was working on someone's body, they were more than just a body.
They were more than just a body.
Yeah.
And so how do you heal them from that space, right? Like, how do you connect with the energy that is the all, if that's what you're doing? Your
Yeah.
modality, I think, is golden light healing, I think.
Yes, there's two. I started off 28 years ago with the Bowen technique, which I still do to a certain extent. And then I developed the golden light healing. But the Bowen technique was and still is phenomenal because it gave me the knowing and the information that the body is imperative. The body is so important. We need to heal the body, the connective tissue, and then it affects the energy field. Because so many people think, oh, we must work on the energy field or we must open up spiritually. And that's true, but we need to be in our bodies. We need to be aligned. And the important reason for working on the body, Trey, is that what I discovered over the years, including me, that the connective tissue, the fascia that surrounds all the muscles, the organs, and the nerves, the fascia, the connective tissue, holds our memories. It holds the negative emotions. It holds our stress. It holds our trauma from this life, from our childhood especially, and from other lives, past lives. And that's what I noticed with people, because the Bowen technique works on many levels at the same time. Why it's a brilliant technique is that it works not just physically, but energetically. So while I was helping people release their pain, say back pain, neck pain, and realigning the body, it was also releasing terrible stress within their system, releasing trauma, trauma within them, and allowing them to open up to themselves and then eventually to the spiritual world. So also with the Bowen technique and the golden light healing, it works on the nervous system. And the interesting thing is nowadays, it's very trendy. People talk about the vagus nerve. They talk about being embodied. And that's what we were doing and still are doing with the Bowen technique now. That's exactly how we work. And nowadays, people realize how important it is to work on the body to release stress and trauma. And in fact, in the world of psychiatry, they now realize this. There's a wonderful psychiatrist, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, and he wrote a brilliant book called The Body Keeps the Score. And he said, trauma changes the brain. We know that. But therefore, it changes the body because the trauma is then in the body as well. And so he advocates yoga, movement, all sorts of bodily activities, which is wonderful because that's what we've been saying for a long time. So what happened with the Bowen, I still do that. And then, as I said, about 5 or 10 years ago, people started coming and they said, I don't know why I'm here. And as I was talking, they just said, there's something else. There's something else. And so I started doing the Bowen technique on them, but I was doing it in a different way. And I was talking to them. I was doing some release work. And because I also am a Bowen tutor, I've been teaching it for 25 years all around the world. It's been a wonderful time and a wonderful privilege. As I'm a Bowen teacher, and there's a structure I have to stick to for teaching, eventually I felt it was unethical to call what I was doing, the new stuff I was doing, simply the Bowen technique. So I thought I must call it something else. And then I mentioned to you before, I have prophetic dreams. I've had all my life. And one night I had this amazing dream. And when I have the prophetic important dreams, I know they're from another dimension. And I dreamt that I saw someone lying on the treatment table, and suddenly there was this beautiful golden light coming in. And I saw these golden light healers coming in, and the golden light touched the body, and then it touched the spine and went all the way up and down the spine. And I woke up and I knew I was going to call this new healing golden light healing.
Oh, I love it. I love it. How
Yeah.
would you, I'm curious now, and I just want to know, how would you describe another dimension?
How would I describe it? Another dimension? To me, another dimension is very light. It's very light. There's a lot of light, a lot of love, and it's really about frequency and vibration. Because when I connect with someone or I do a soul reading, I meditate before, and I literally raise my frequency to connect with another dimension. So I can then work soul to soul. And that's what we all do when we meditate or we're in nature and we're very quiet. We are connecting to another dimension, and it's frequency and light. And then if you're in a deeper meditation and connecting, then for me, in my mind's eye, I can see images and I can see what we call guides or guardians, beautiful beings of light. I just see light beings,
I love
and
that.
and different versions sometimes, because I believe from what I've seen, and this is just my experience, there's different dimensions. There's the dragon dimension, there's the elemental dimension, when I work with flower essences and I see nature and the elementals and the light beings. And nowadays a lot of people talk about the star beings, and I have had connection there. I don't know much about that as yet, but I feel the connection's been made, so that will unfold as it's meant to, because there's also an important element here of timing. Everything in its own time. We all connect in the right time for us and for whoever wants to come through the other dimensions.
I love that. What's the commonality amongst all the dimensions, right? Like you talked about a very diverse set of
Yeah.
dimensions that are out there, dragons, fairies, things of that nature. But like, is there a commonality amongst all of them? Is it like similar to this, where there is like I feel like there is a
Yeah, no,
denseness.
this is very, very dense. The earth, from my experience and belief, is a very dense place where we've come to actually connect more with our soul and align ourselves and raise our frequency. That's how I see it. So earth is very, very dense, and as we raise the frequency, as we connect more with our soul and the light beings, life does become easier. Not so much on a physical level, as such, everything's wonderful. It's not. It just becomes easier to manage when we realize we're not alone and we have help from the dimensions and the souls around us. So, yeah, the earth is very dense. What I feel and what I see, I always ask to connect to beings of high light, the golden light, and light-filled dimensions.
Hmm. So when we heal, going back to the body, sorry, I'm skipping all
Yeah,
over the place because
that's
there's
that's
so
fine.
much
It's great.
here that I
There's so
just
much to
so
talk
much.
about.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know, right? Because I'm very interested in the body and how the trauma is in the body holds
yeah,
the trauma from our childhood, past
childhood.
lives, and things of that nature, right?
It
So how do
does.
you clear that? Do you is the Bowen technique a hands-on approach?
It's the bow. Sorry, I should have mentioned that the bone technique is a hands-on approach. The golden light healing is also hands-on, less so, and I can do both online. The bone technique I prefer to do in person, but it can be online, and it came into its own in lockdown. I was already seeing many clients abroad before, clients of mine who'd moved away, and it worked well. The golden light healing I do mostly online because I find, with both of them, but I find online, strangely enough, I'm able to download a lot of intuitive psychic information from the body, and the energy field. So the other thing that happened to me, Trey, after many years of doing the bone technique and doing healing and working with the flower essences, and other techniques, I found that when I was touching the body, I found that suddenly I was getting messages from the body. It was like the body was talking to me, and I felt that there was a communication channel between the person's body, the connective tissue, and me that had opened up. And that was very exciting. So I would touch a person's body or part of the body, and I would get an emotion that belonged to them. It was an emotion stuck in that area. And then, with the person's permission, I would ask them, and it would invariably be correct, and we would work with that. So the bone technique and the golden DNA, what I did, doing movements on the body and in the energy field, would release. But by talking to the person and making them aware of what was stuck in the body, very often you're halfway there, you're 50% there, because once somebody has awareness of what's going on, or the awareness of the emotion that's coming up, then they can get that aha moment.
I was going to ask you, like, when you clear that out, that energy, that
Yeah.
trauma, like, how does that person's reality start changing?
Well, that's fascinating, Trey, because the external world starts changing, because it's the old adage of as you change within, so without changes. And that's exactly what happens. So, for example, I've seen thousands of people, but for example, one lady came and she'd had a neck pain, because one of the most important things to mention is that when people come for a pain or symptom, it's not just physical. The physical and emotional are two sides of the same coin. So when you have a pain, it's usually related to something going on in your life. So the big question I ask everyone when they come to me is, okay, what's going on in your life right now? And they look at me strangely and I say, tell me how you are, and especially what's happened in the last 2 years, because people don't realize the connection. Have they had a bereavement, divorce, marriage? What's happened? What's their marriage like? I don't always ask that. I wait for people to tell me. So this woman, for example, this is a good example. She came and she'd said, I've had neck pain for many years and no one's been able to clear it or help. So I did 1 or 2 treatments and it didn't change. And then the next time I put my hand on her neck and I asked the tissues, I said, please help. And I suddenly got this image in my head of a man beating her. And she had said I could tell her whatever came up. And I told her, and she started crying because she said that was her father. And then the whole story came out about her father and the abuse. And that trauma was locked into her neck and hadn't been able to come out. So the key here is it doesn't always instantly go and you're fine. You have to work through it. So I carried on working with her over the months, and eventually the neck pain went. But more than that, as you were saying, her life changed because she felt that release of trauma. She felt so much lighter in herself and happier, that feeling of joy and lightness. And then everything around her started to change. And she was able to gain her confidence, which she didn't have, and then make decisions that were more positive for her. Another example was a student of mine, and she, a lovely girl, and in class, we were all practicing what's called the coccyx release. So the coccyx is the tailbone at the end of the spine, and somebody did a lovely little light move over the coccyx, and she burst into tears. And I let her lie there for a while, just let her cry, and looked after her. And later on, I said, what happened? And she said, it was amazing. She said a year before that, there was a breakup with a boyfriend and they were having their last conversation and they were outside in the field, and he was getting angry, and he wasn't violent at all, but he just pushed her because he was frustrated, and she lost her balance and she fell on her coccyx. And she said, I'd forgotten about that. And she said, when the student did the coccyx move on me, the memory came up and I could feel the emotion coming up. And she cried, and that cleared from the coccyx area. And she messaged the next day to say the pain had gone. And she'd had pain for a whole year in the coccyx area.
It's funny how, you release that in that area, right? Like, release all the
Yes.
crap in your life, right? Release that
Yes.
crap energy, and
Yes.
yeah, your reality will change. So, do you think it's you that is helping these people heal, or are they healing
No,
themselves?
no, that's a very good question. I'm a facilitator. And I be, I've taught so many students that I noticed an interesting phenomena that a lot of students think, oh, I wish I was like this person or that person. Are they so good? And I would say to them, no. I said, when you're working with a technique, so we were working with the Bowen technique, it could be the golden light healing or any technique, that technique has an energy all of its own. And so, for example, my energy connects with the energy of the therapy I'm using. Plus, we're connecting with the universal field. And all of that together, connecting with the person, is doing the work. So before I start any of my work for the day, I tune in, I open up, I call in my guides, because I'm not just working alone. I've got a team of guides that work with me. And then I just do a very gentle protection for myself because I'm working with a lot of people. I don't want to take on their stuff. And then I go in. And then the minute I have my hands on the person or online, I have my hands out and I can feel online what's going on in the body. I can feel the energy of my team of guides coming in, and I'm connecting very much with the person and the energy field, which is why when I put my hands on someone, and it's not everybody, I don't get information from every single person I treat. It's not meant to be. I get a lot of information from some people when they really, really need to hear it that day, or they really need the healing that day. And it's also very important that the body has its own time to heal, the body, the energy field, the person. So it may be that that's the particular day and week that the body decides to let go. So I think I've lost track of your question, but yes, it's a combination of the energy of the technique, the energy of the person, me, and what's happening around me. And also, Trey, really important to say, I'm a firm believer in personal development because, and I tell my students that, you can't just go and heal somebody or do work that you do, consciousness work, talking to people, on a larger scale, if you haven't done some work on yourself, because it all starts with self-awareness and releasing from your body and energy field as much trauma and stress buildup as you can, plus the generational trauma that we have, the generational lineage as well.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Now, you said earlier, and I wanted to hit on this, you said the body has wisdom, right? Like,
yes.
Where does that wisdom come from? Like, we come into this world and this reality and we think we are the body. And then when you receive information from the body, we're kind of like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm not telling you anything. It's like you're receiving some type of wisdom. Like, where does that wisdom come from in the body?
Well, interesting question. When I touch the body or online, it's the same. I feel, you see, as you know, we're multidimensional beings. So I feel it's coming from many sources at the same time because we're in linear time. But when I go into the healing space or the reading space, there's so many dimensions and timelines happening at the same time. So when I touch the body, I really feel that I'm getting a whisper from the tissues telling me how it's really feeling. At the same time, I'm picking up the person's energy field and also getting whispers from my team of guides about what's happening and how to proceed. And it's all happening at once because in that dimension, time doesn't exist, if you know what I mean.
Sure. Have you ever seen like some miracle healings? Have you ever been a part of those types of healings where people were basically like last resort? Okay, conventional medicine hasn't been able to heal me. I'm looking for an alternate method. I'm coming to
Yes.
you. I have no awareness of what kind of work you're doing. However, I'm going to have faith
Yes,
that you're going to help me.
I've seen many, and what I have to say is, when I talk about healing, I'm writing a book about healing and the spiritual world, and there's 4 chapters in that on the clients that I've seen, and the one is on physical healing experiences. The next is emotional healing, mental healing, and spiritual healing. So over the years, I've seen some amazing miracles in physical and emotional. The two go together. And I've seen lately, the last 5-10 years, on the spiritual level, as we've all opened up to this new energy. So, for example, one of them in my early years was a lovely man, and he phoned up and he had an accent. So I could barely understand him, but he was in pain. And he said that he had a back operation many years ago. It had gone wrong, sadly. So he was in terrible pain all the time and on morphine, and his back would go into spasm. So when I opened the door, I had that feeling of, oh my goodness, I wonder if I can help. He was doubled over in pain. And he came in and he couldn't sit or stand or do anything. And his story briefly was that he decided to go to Spain, in our winters here in England, because it was hot and he thought the heat would help. And he said one day, he was in Spain and he was lying in bed and then he would get these spasms. He said that was so horrendous, he had to go to A&E for morphine. So he got one of these spasms and he thought to himself, quite logically, he thought, I can't do this anymore. I just can't do it. I'm going to go to the window over there and throw myself out, because he was in the top floor flat. And then he started laughing because he realized, I can't walk. I can't get there. So he had his phone and he phoned the ambulance and he came back here eventually. And so I lay him down. He could barely, he just kind of lay down. And I remember looking at, and I saw his hamstring muscles were unbelievably tight. They were so tight that they were like jumping out of the body. And I did a mini treatment on him because I felt the body couldn't take too much. But I focused a lot on physically releasing that hamstring. And off he went, and that was the bone technique. And we only see someone once a week. And he came back 5 days later, and I opened the door, and he stood there smiling, standing upright with a big smile and a bunch of flowers. And that was the most incredible physical healing. He came every week for a while, then he came once a month, and every few months, and now he comes once a year or so. And as he said, it wasn't me that did it, I just facilitated it. As he said, it changed his life. He could go fishing and he could live a normal life. And it was absolutely wonderful. And to give you an example of something else, he had a twin sister, and he was 65 then. It was about 10 years ago. And so obviously the twin sister was 65, and he said, could I bring her to you? Because she's in town, doesn't live here. And I opened the door again, and I was so shocked. My heart went out to her. She was severely anorexic, severely. So she looked like a little girl in a little dress, and she was 65. And I remember thinking, well, there's not much I can do except just relax her and just pour some love into her. And she lay down on the table, and I usually put my hands, and I usually say to people, just relax. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, oh, just relax. And she said, I don't know what that word means. And I thought, my goodness, we've got a whole level here of trauma. And what happened was I then closed my eyes, and I just said, to my guides, to the beings, to out there, the soul beings, I said, please help, please help in some way. And all of a sudden, in my mind's eye, I saw a woman, and I'm not a medium as such, but I do get messages if the person really needs it. And I saw this woman, and she was holding a yellow rose, and she had a message for this lady on the table. So I told her afterwards, and she burst into tears, and she was so happy because she said that was her late mother, and her mother always loved yellow roses. So that was exactly what she needed to give her some healing and comfort in that treatment, because there wasn't much else I could do.
Wow.
And another example, because you ask about life changing, there's lots of the physical, emotional healing, but with the soul healing, that's become so interesting lately. There was a lady who came to me, and she was one of those clients who said, I don't know why I'm here, but I just had a feeling you could help. And that particular week, and we know how synchronicity works, we put a thought idea out and then it happens. That particular week, I was thinking of writing about soul healings in the book. And I was thinking, I wonder what stories or new stories. And it was that week she came, and I gave her the treatment, and I came in at the end and I said, we're finished. And she jumped up, and she was still in the treatment. And she said, I saw my soul. And I said, oh, wow. She said, I saw my soul. And while she was in it, I said, describe it. And I wrote it all down. And she just described this beautiful light and mirrors and beautiful beings. It was quite phenomenal. And the key here is that she didn't heal overnight. It took months and months of working through, but this opened her up. And because she felt she saw her soul, she connected in some way. That was the beginning of her journey.
Have you ever seen your soul?
In meditation. And I wouldn't say I've seen my whole soul. I would say I've seen my soul essence, who I look like as a soul being, who I look like on the other side almost. I've seen
what
that.
What does that look like? What does that look like?
It looks like, she looks like me, but just made of light. And when I see her, in my dreams very much on another dimension, and in my meditation, because there's the physical body, there's no trauma, there's no pain body, it's just light. And there's this radiating light and expansion, really, really beautiful. And then it's the heart connection. I just feel my heart opens up, and there's no words, it's all telepathy.
Oh, wow. Have you ever seen anything in your physical reality, like something that you cannot explain, like maybe a light being or a teacher or ascended master, like when you're in these different states of altered, non-ordinary consciousness? Have you ever seen in your physical reality that could be termed like a glitch in the system, or like some type of realization that this reality is definitely not physical?
Yes, I did see quite a bit of that as a child. Although as a child, I didn't see ghost apparitions that a lot of mediums see, but I was aware of other beings, but it came in a different way. I wouldn't suddenly just see it. What would happen as a child, I would be sitting there and I would suddenly get a memory of having seen something like that, and I would get really scared. I would see some sort of animal or some being, but it would come into my mind later. So it's hard to explain. There was like a time frame there. But as an adult, yes, remember when I said I was in that group with people, and these beings were just overshadowing and coming in. I did see faces, these star beings. I saw. They were light beings, and I saw them like in uniform. There was this, where they wear the high collar. I saw that. And then another time, as I said, I would see Pan, I'd see elementals, I'd see dragons. So there was this whole array of different dimensions being shown to me at that time. And in my meditations, I will sometimes see, and then if I open my eyes out of the corner of my eye, I will see a version of that.
Wow. So over the course of your journey and from where you started to where you're at now, like how has the evolution of your consciousness, how has that changed your reality?
Completely. As I said, when I realized and discovered and was in touch with people who had died, people who've moved on, and animals, that gave great comfort that there was more. And then the meditation helped a lot, but also, in lockdown, we had a lot of time, and I did a lot of online workshops as well. And I connected to some wonderful beings, and I was doing a lot of soul to soul work. And there I again connected with other dimensions. I got a lot of information, and I myself felt my whole body and soul expand. And I don't know about you, but every day, every week, I feel different. I feel different to how I was a year or so ago. I'm a different person to how I was 10 or 20 years ago. So I
Sure.
feel we're reinventing ourselves, not just physically, but energetically. Energetically, the more we open up to spirit, and also it's our chakras as well, our energy centers. It's clearing. The more we clear, the more we open up the ability for more light to enter us.
Mhm. Oh, there's so many questions I want to add. You have so much experience. What? So the beings that you see, right? Like the light beings, what's their relationship to us? And have you ever experienced like the darker side of beings, like right, like that are maybe influencing this reality in a negative way? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, again, my thoughts are highly personal, highly personal. Um, I didn't what On the one hand, I feel that love conquers all. But on the other hand, you have to be really careful, because personally, I do believe in the dark forces. When I meditate or I'm healing, I make sure that I ask to be on the light with the light only, and to work with the love vibration. But I have seen some of the darkness, and I just keep myself away from that. If anyone contacts me and they wants me to clear them of an entity, I don't go there. And the reason I send them somewhere else, the reason I don't go there, and the reason I am cautious, because surely if there's so many dimensions, there's so many possibilities, there's millions of dimensions. It's not just light, there is darker. For me, it's because I'm very sensitive. I'm a very sensitive being. I now know I'm an empath. I always was as a child. So for me, it's probably easier, even though I work with love, it's probably easier for me to take on something that doesn't belong to me than someone else. But I do believe, Trey, that the more our vibration rises, the more we're filled with the love and light, and we raise the vibration, the more we work with love and the darkness can't come in. But I've heard stories from other people. I've seen lots that's happened. The one thing that happened to me not long ago, a woman phoned. She was a friend of a client, and the client was lovely. The friend was lovely. And she just said, I feel I've got something attached. Can you help? And I said, well, I can't really help. I don't deal with that. So she said, well, can you just do some of your healing work? And we were actually on the phone. And I said, okay, I'll just do 10 minutes on the phone for you now. And I did some healing work. And as soon as I was finished, there was a very subtle change within me. It was very hard to say what it was. She messaged that night, the next day, to say, as soon as you did it, I came back to myself. It was 100%. And I felt dreadful, but it wasn't that obvious. I was tired. I felt strange, couldn't put my finger on it. Cut a long story short, there's a clairvoyant lady that I go to who helps me, and she does healing. And I went to her for some healing, and I said, I'm just not myself. And she said, okay. And so she did a few things, and everything was fine. She was just coming to the end of it when she said, there's something in your energy field that's hidden. I just saw it now. And she said, it's not as bad as an entity, but it's something similar. I've never seen that in your energy field. What have you done? And I immediately thought of this woman, as she cleared that, luckily. So that was a really good lesson for me to not only use even more protection for myself. I'm one of those people that needs protection, but to be very careful.
I wonder what it is like that.
Yeah.
That collects that energy, you know what I mean? Or attaches that energy to us. I've heard of people going through traumas, and then during that trauma, they kind of disassociate from the body, which allows something to come in. And I don't know if that does it, but what are your thoughts?
Well, there's lots of things. And I think one of the things can be thought forms. A lot of people think they've got an attachment, but actually it's negative thoughts they've had over so many years that has actually almost become like an entity. So it's like a big cloud they carry around. That's the one thing. The other thing I'm sure you're aware of, if people do a lot of drugs or alcohol, that can weaken the aura. And I've seen that can weaken the aura, and that can cause some darkness or something else from outside to attach to them, which is why I like working with the flower essences, because some of the essences I have can help to heal the aura or damage to the aura.
Is the aura what protects us? Is that the aura? Does it protect us from things?
It protects us, but what happens is we've got the energy bodies, and we've got the aura around us, and it's, on the one hand, it's protecting us, but if we're using too many drugs or alcohol, what happens is it can cause, from my perspective, it can cause cracks in the aura, and in some cases with people and with trauma, it can cause more than a crack, and then some things can get in, some negative energies can get in, perhaps,
Sure.
and then that can cause problems within the person's body.
Do you think there are channels out there that think that they're channeling like higher light beings, but in actuality, it's a lower energy that's attaching themselves to them? And how do you prevent that?
Well, that's another good question. And for people listening, this is just my personal viewpoint.
Sure.
Absolutely, totally with you on that. I love the world of channeling. I also feel it's a very dangerous world, because anybody who hasn't worked on themselves, and I've seen some channeling where they're actually channeling really well, but they've had such trauma in their life that you think to yourself, well, what's actually going on here? Who's actually coming through them? And some of the channeling can appear lovely and lots of light, but there can be an element of mistruth in it. So when you talk about channeling, I don't know if you've come across Seth. Seth, amazing channeled work. A woman in the 1970s called Jane Roberts channeled Seth. Amazing work, very high complex words and vibrations behind it. And that Seth is and was a high level being. And I listened to only a few. There's Seth, there's a wonderful being called Zach, channeled through Janet Trelaw, and of course Suzanne Giserman, who so many people know, channels Sanaya, her at the beings, and absolutely high level. So I feel you have to go into the channeling with great caution, and be aware of who the person is, their background. And when you listen to what they say, do you resonate with it? It's all about resonance.
Sure. So when you have these psychic abilities, you have these extra psych, psycho spiritual senses. When you see someone channeling, is that your meter for truth? Is the body, or do you see anything in the aura? Is there any type of
I get a feeling because I'm very clairsentient, so I feel a lot, and I get an immediate or an immediate wow, you know,
hmm,
um, and I can also pick up the vibration of the words, the vibration in the tone of the voice, because sound is a vibration and sound is so powerful. So I first pick up probably from their energy field, or wonderful, and the sound they're making, because the words they say could be wonderful, but is it the truth? And what's the vibration behind it? Is it imbued with love and light?
I
So,
wonder
so
what the
you have
truth
to be
is.
very, you have to be very, you have to be really discerning. I know
Yeah.
it is hard.
Well, through your journey, right? Like, how have you discerned the information? Because, like, you get into this world of spirituality, and it seems like there's
Yes,
a million teachers with a million different techniques and solutions for this
yes.
spiritual problem that we have, right? Of knowing or wanting to know the truth. Like, what has been your compass? What has been your true north when you're finding, when you're
You know
finding
what?
information on the other side?
Yeah. Do you know what? Like everybody 20, 30 years ago, I searched and I read all the books and I went to all the teachers and I went to all the workshops and I went outside myself, because you go outside yourself for validation. And I found a few good teachers and I've got their books and they're the ones I follow. And along the way, I fell down a few rabbit holes, went a bit wrong, but picked myself up, because everyone has feet of clay. It's really the message. And then nowadays, the last few years and more, Trey, the answer is just obvious. It's all within us. It's all within us. And I know it's easy to say that, but it really is all within us. And with all of us, especially me, it's very hard to do something consistently. And it's having a consistent spiritual practice and meditating consistently. And it was only when I managed to get myself, okay, you've got to do this, you've got to do it every day, even 5-10 minutes of meditation, do the consistent practice. And I realized that when we do our own inner work and our own meditation practice, the work on ourselves, that we are our own teacher, because we're also unique. So we can learn from good teachers. We can really learn and get these aha moments, and they help us along the way, like pebbles on the beach. But when we open up to ourself and our own true essence and our guides and guardians and our own soul, that's where the magic is. So one of the online programs I have, I call it "You Are the Magic," because that is where the magic is. So it's when people come for healing, for treatments, or readings, it's about bringing the magic, bringing out that soul essence from each person, really. So
Wow.
at the end of the day, it's all within here. And we just use teachers as guide signposts along the way until we need less and less of them.
Sure. It's finding that authentic self within, right? To really truly know who you are, like,
Absolutely.
just from, like, what is
Yeah.
it that you really want in this world? Like, what is your purpose? Like, how do you even know? Like, with all the programming that takes place and all of the societal norms, like, how do you know exactly what you want is what you want, and not someone telling you in that voice inside your head that is a recording from when you were a child saying you need to have this to be
Mm.
successful? Like, how do you tear away, how do you find the authentic self? I know it's through a lot of sitting and meditation and kind of just thinking that, who is really the essence of this desire. Like, what is the essence of that? Where is it coming from? Like, I ask people
Yeah.
all the time, like, if you showed up on the earth right now with no previous knowledge of who you are, or what this place is, what would your purpose be? And a lot of people, including myself, have taken a moment and, like, I don't know what my purpose would be. If I had no idea what this
Yeah.
place was and I just showed up on planet Earth right now, today's day one, and I am sitting here with no previous knowledge of anything, like what would my purpose be? What would your purpose be if you just showed up here in this reality?
Crumbs. If I just showed up in this reality, I would have to look around and search and think and ask, probably go to other people and ask, and then eventually just sit with myself and see what made sense. It's a very interesting question. I knew a man many years ago who was very autistic, but he was also very connected to what we call UFOs, and he dreamt about them every night, every night. And he worked in IT because he was a genius at that. And I said to him once, I said, what do you think your purpose is here? And he said, I don't really know. He said, but if I had to think about it, he said, I just think I'm collecting data. I'm collecting data for these beings from another dimension. That story just came to my mind, actually, because I always felt it was really strange as an example. But yes, if I just arrived here, I feel like I'm on another planet. And it would be like we'd have to be learning from scratch. But Trey, one of the things I do, is numerology. I did many years ago, and then in meditation one day I saw this new guide, and suddenly this new guide showed number 9, and I thought that's really interesting, and I got the sense from this guide that I needed to do the numerology, the number code frequencies, I call it, because he was saying that so many people need guidance, and the number code frequencies are a form of guidance for people in a new way because of the new energies. So I do people a divine signature plan, and for you, I just did a few minutes of the number code frequency. And so I just bring this up because it's another method of a person's soul plan to help. If somebody had given me or you a really good reading of some kind, or a plan, a soul plan, when we were much younger, or a child, it would have been so helpful, because it gives you your strengths and weaknesses and what you're good at and which way you should go, and that type of information, and for you it's really interesting because you're as you know, your number code frequency is a 9. And 9 is a humanitarian number. And so you're doing exactly that with the consciousness. But I add a few elements to it. I combine the number code frequencies with the tarot and information from my guides. And I connect color to it. So for you, there was the color blue, which often comes with a 9. But for you specifically, it was the most beautiful light blue. And it was so light. It was like I could see through it. And 2 words jumped out from that color about you, and it was truth and integrity. And the sense I got was truth and integrity are really important to you. It's like a line that you don't cross. It's almost part of your blueprint. And then what came from that blue, the information, was that you need to have space alone. I know you have a busy life and you have family, but you need to have space alone, or even sort of physical space. You need at times a lot of physical space. I saw you like in this huge jungle, and when you have space, that's when you connect very much to higher consciousness and you download. And with your number, you're very psychic. You also have healing ability in some way. It doesn't necessarily have to be the hands or hands-on healing. It could be, but it's healing, talking to people, listening to people. So in some way you have a healing ability within you. And the other interesting thing is that the day you're born is very important, everybody. So you're born on the 10th, and the naught I always see as gives the person extra spirituality. So it adds a spiritual element. So you're being born on the 10th gives you more spirituality than normal, but it also allies with the number next to it. So you're a 1. If somebody was born on the 20th, the number 2, to my mind, is sensitive. So the naught would make it then even more sensitive. But with you, the 1, as you know, is independence, a lot of strength. You have a lot of emotional strength. So that naught gives you even more depth to that, a lot of strength. it also says that you need to have a balance, because you're very, very busy and there's a lot of aspiration, inspiration. You need to have a balance between that and your own creative expression. You can't, you mustn't give that much that you don't express yourself. And the other little interesting bit for you is the part of the number codes where you can predict is the vibration, the year vibration. So normally for people, I'll do an hour of the number frequencies for them. And then I will do the year ahead, and I'll do every quarter of the year ahead. And you, from now, May until your birthday next year, you're going into a 5 frequency, which is wonderful, because you're just coming out of the 4, or you've just come out of the 4, and the 4 can be quite restrictive. The 5 is more freedom. But for you, it's mental freedom. This is the year that you need to have a lot of mental freedom, a lot of thoughts. And it's a fantastic year for you, because you can harness the huge energy of inspiration this year. So there's going to be a lot of inspiration that you can tap into for projects, ideas, thoughts, writing. So make sure you tap into that. So in that way, it's going to be a great year. The other thing for you specifically about this 5 year is that there's going to be a couple of things happening either within the family or projects where you're going to be so excited, but you might have to use patience, because it might not go as quickly as you would like. So if you can just think, okay, don't get frustrated, don't get too impatient. I just got to go with it. And remember that timing is everything. And there might even be an important contract you'll be signing, but it's also a very important karmic year for you, this one. Very important karmic year for you in many ways, but a very exciting one.
I'm so excited right now just listening to this. Is there anything you don't do? Like, I feel like you have your hands in everything from numerology to healing, right?
Yeah, I feel like that sometimes, and I think, what do I do? And one of my mentors, not one, my mentor, he's a wonderful being, and I said to him, what do I do? And he just smiled, and he said, intuitive healing, wise words, being there for people. And he said something so wonderful, which I feel you do, we all do when we do it with an open heart. He said, people need to be seen, people need to be heard, and they need to be held. And I feel as healers, and as healers of the light, and you're one of them with what you do, we need to hold people, because so many people, so many of us are full of trauma, full of stress. And our job, especially now in the world, is to help people to release that, whether it's on a one-on-one or collectively like you. I really believe with your podcasts, they're wonderful, because you hear one thing that gives you that aha moment, or you learn something, or it leads you to that person you need to hear. I was led to you from a podcast. I was on Suzanne Gieselman's podcast. I love them like I love yours. And she had Annette Bricker on. Annette Bricker, the psychic, she is an earth angel. And she said, I'm going to tell Trey about you. And that's how it landed up here. So I'm so grateful to all of them. So it's almost like this wonderful network, this incredible network that we're all putting out there in the world, and all helping each other. And talking about that reminds me, the network, coming back to the body. There are so many wonderful books from many years ago that people have forgotten about. One of them is called The Molecules of Emotion by Candice Pert, P-E-R-T. And she wrote a book, I think it was 1999, Molecules of Emotion. And she was a neuroscientist. And she discovered, on a physical level, she discovered something called neuropeptides. And neuropeptides, she discovered, are all over the body, in all the areas of the body, and not just the brain. And that these neuropeptides were a network of emotions in our body. And that makes sense as to when you touch somebody, or you're doing some healing or releasing work, you're releasing the emotion from the tissues. So I just thought of that as we were talking about you in the wider sense, like that web, that World Wide Web, and the interconnectedness and the entanglement theory, which isn't a theory, of all of us being connected through time and space. So when we do this online, when we're doing online healing or work of any kind, we're working through time and space, because there is no time and it's all happening at once.
I love it. I love being connected to you, Joanne. This has been fabulous. I'm glad I have you on speed dial. So when I'm going through those moments of impatience, I can give you a shout and maybe get some perspective on where I'm at. Annette Bricka, she's fabulous. She definitely is an angel on earth. Shout out to Annette. As you as well, you have definitely helped me in my growth and finding my spiritual true north. So I find that just speaking to you definitely raises my own vibration and gives me perspective about my own consciousness and where to, pursue where to go next, right? And what I should be focusing my energy on, which is balance and coming back more into the body, and just kind of having that space, finding that space in my life and in my reality to where I can connect with those light beings, higher consciousness, and just kind of integrating that information back into the body, which I think is so important and essential to our growth. But Joanne, how can people find you? How can they connect? How could they, I don't know, make an appointment to have a session with you?
I'll tell you now, and I love quotes, and I wanted to end with this one quote of the late Dr. Wayne Dyer, the spiritual teacher, and he said, "Do not die with the music still inside you. Do not die with the music still inside you." And I just think that's so beautiful. And it just gives hope to everyone. And to find me, my website is joannefigofhealing.com, joannefigofhealing.com. You can email, message me. I've got there, you can find what I do one-on-one. I also have an option of, I do small group healing sessions where I do groups of 4, 6 or 8, mostly 4 people. And I do group healing and everybody gets individual healing as well. And it ends with a message. So there's that option. And I also have online programs. There's 2 of them. One is well-being on all levels, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, 6-week programs, and I've got a program on spiritual development. The well-being, both of them, they cross over because you can't have one without the other. And the well-being one is I set up this vortex of energy for everybody so that we all have our frequency raised, and then it's entrained into that vibration into our bodies, so that after the sessions, people can still feel it and work with it. And with the spiritual development, we work with all areas of spiritual development and bringing tools to connect us to our soul, our higher being, our higher self. And I use, we do automatic writing as part of that, because that's really, really special. And there's lots more. So joannefigofhealing.com. I'd love to hear from you, any feedback. And Trey, thank you so much for having me on here. It's been an absolute honor to connect with you and your audience. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.